Welcome everybody to another episode of the SRU podcast with me and my guy, Will Royal. How you doing there, Will?
Recovering. We're
Yeah,
going to talk about why towards the end, but this was a good week of college football, not going to lie.
yeah, it really was.
Apart from almost having about 4 or 5 heart attacks Saturday night, but, it's Monday or when this episode comes out on Tuesday, which means we got a new AP poll coming out and we have a new number one team.
Yeah,
This one I'm not too sure about. Georgia is back on top, because apparently beating Auburn is such a big deal nowadays.
that's a
Um,
rivalry game right there.
okay. Um, Ohio State's 2 moving up, and that means Alabama's 3. Do you agree with this new top 3 rating? Because personally, with me, I think Ohio State should be 1, Alabama 2, Georgia 3. Because yes, Bama has struggled with A&M, but A&M is a good team.
Yeah.
Georgia, on the other hand, struggled with Missouri, and then they blow out an Auburn team they were expected to win by 30.
Wait, did you just say A&M's a good team?
Okay, looking at it from the season, like at the beginning of the season standpoint, like they were the number 6 team in the country. They had number 1 recruiting class. They did lose to Mississippi State, who's now, a top 20 team.
Yeah.
Yes, I lost to Appalachian State, but on paper, it's a better team than Georgia almost blowing it to Missouri. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I would say that Mississippi State is number 16 in the country. Um, for the top four, I feel like it's going to be interchangeable for this week at least because this week coming up, there's a lot of good games, a lot of games that will probably determine who's going to be in the playoffs at the end of the year or determine how the playoff atmosphere is going to look. Georgia, I would probably put them at 2, put Ohio State at 1, or put Georgia at 3. It doesn't really the top 3 doesn't really matter to me. It's that number 4 spot. The number 4 spot is looking real nice around the college football world. The top, I would say the top 4 through 9, all those teams could be in that 4 spot for me. For me, I would probably put Michigan. Michigan, they've been quiet this year, but they've been having a really good season so far, and they dropped out. But yeah, right now it doesn't matter. It's what, week 7 coming up. We need once like week 10, week 9 comes around, then those spots will really matter, and when the conference championships start. But
Yeah,
we did, yeah,
and in a month's time, we are going to have the first college playoff poll, and that's going to be the bigger poll in terms of what we're going to be looking at.
yeah, that really is going to determine what happens in college football when that polls come out. All these other polls, AP poll doesn't really matter because no one uses that poll anymore.
Yeah.
We will see who's the big dogs of the country in a few weeks.
Yeah. Some other notable changes we saw in the AP poll. Tennessee is now up to 6, which is big because they have Alabama this weekend. College game day is going to Knoxville again. UCLA, after their big win over Utah, they are now up to 11. TCU up to 13. These undefeated teams are climbing more and more up the ladder. We have 3 new teams entering the playoffs, or not the playoffs, the AP poll. Texas is back in after their dominant win over Oklahoma. Illinois being back in the AP poll for the first time since 2012, which was the longest streak after Kansas. And James Madison, of all teams, a team that wasn't playing FBS football this time a year ago, made that transition now at 25. 3 teams that fell out: Washington after their loss to Arizona State, BYU after their loss to Notre Dame, and LSU after their loss to Tennessee. As of now, we have 15 teams who are still undefeated, and if I can pull up this number, but we did lose 1 team from last week, and that was Kansas, unfortunately. Here we go. So in no particular order, the last 15 teams who are still undefeated are Ole Miss, Penn State, USC, UCLA, Ohio State, James Madison, Clemson, Alabama, Coastal Carolina, TCU, Tennessee, Georgia, Michigan, Syracuse, and Oklahoma State. Any surprises?
No, I'm actually not surprised that James Madison's in the top 25. I told you when Jack was on the pod, James Madison will be a sleeper team. They've been great in the FCS, and FCS, the high FCS and low FBS is literally the same thing. If you can show that you're a good FCS team, I feel like you deserve to be bumped up to the FBS. I feel like college football should have like a relegation type deal, like how international football has it, where like last what would you say, like 10 teams in the nation, like the worst 10 teams in the nation should get bumped down and have a chance to come back the next year.
Yes.
How they play. I feel like that would really help it would make winning and fighting for your coach and your program more exciting if that happened.
Yeah. So what you're saying is we could be realistically seeing North Dakota State come up as someone like Colorado State go down.
Yeah. Or like Colorado.
Yeah.
Speaking of Colorado, they still hadn't won a game.
They're now the only winless team left in FBS because Colorado State ended up winning their game.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, yeah.
We did have a lot of games we picked in last week's pick'ems. Our guest picker, the irrelevant people who actually watched and enjoyed the Indianapolis Denver game.
Yeah.
Yay, we didn't have a guest picker last week. But we will have a guest picker, and you want to walk us through that one, Bryce?
We are supposed to have a guest picker in. We're going to try to have one this week. My old roommate, Josh O'Connell, big Tennessee fan. So I wanted him to come on for this specific week because there is a big game between Alabama and Tennessee. He's already throwing shots at Alabama. I've talked to him earlier today. So I'm pretty happy to say if he comes on, we will have an exciting pod with a debate between Will and Josh when it comes to Tennessee versus Alabama.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to help much that one of their starters got arrested yesterday on aggravated assault charge, but
Do you want to go into what happened, Will, or you want to have people look it up?
Nah, this is a PG show. We're gonna
all right.
We're gonna keep it. We're gonna keep that PG rating. Something that wasn't PG rating though was the game in Starkville.
All right. Well, I'm gonna take this game. You're not going to disrespect me like that.
I had to transition somehow.
Yeah, so Arkansas did play at the time number 23 Mississippi State. We did take a L, 40-17, but we didn't have our starting quarterback, and we missed a lot of opportunities with Will Rogers throwing literally 5 picks, and we didn't catch any of them. Like, if you watch the game, the ball went straight through all our defensive players' hands. It was pretty bad, but there was a bright spot because Arkansas did find their QB2 and could be our future. I call him the mini Lamar Jackson with his speed and is able to throw the ball pretty far. He had a pretty nice throw to who was that? I think it was Keytron Jackson, or I forgot who it was. But yeah, he had a pretty good game despite his 2 interceptions he threw. He went 8 for 17 with 334 passing yards, 114 rushing yards, and 1 touchdown. And I said the 2 interceptions, as Will Rogers, who had a pretty a phenomenal game when it comes to the stat sheets, with 31 for 48, 395 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. For me, I'm very pissed. It's time to get Barry Odom out of there, and Kendall Browse is looking like it's time to get him out of there. Our play calling has been trash all year, and our defensive scheme is outdated. People have figured us out as a defensive team. Rushing 3 the entire game really put us as a handicap. Will Rogers had all the time in the pocket to throw. He almost had 400 yards for peak's sake. and 3 touchdowns. So it's time for a change in our coordinator spot for sure. Well, I don't know if you watched the game, but how do you feel about that game?
I mean, this is more or less about looking back and seeing, because I don't know if you really pay attention to the game, but Will Rogers actually broke the SEC all-time completion record in
Yeah,
this
I
game.
did do that.
Something you didn't expect the quarterback out of Mississippi State to do. You would expect it to be from, Alabama, LSU, Georgia, one of those bigger name teams, not just, I wouldn't really say little Mississippi State anymore. They're actually good. But I think like Mississippi State, and I was talking about this with someone at my news station about this morning.
Mhm.
Mississippi State is going to be one of those teams that are like UHAC is going to be like more troublesome than we thought.
Yeah, I feel like they're going to be like how Arkansas was last year. Had a lot of close games for the games they lost and won some big games. And to add on to that, Will Rogers breaking the all-time SEC passing yards. Bumper Pool did break the Arkansas tackling record. I forgot who had it before him, but he did break it this game. Most people seen it coming this year because he is a tackle machine. But honestly, he's had an off year if you're an Arkansas fan watching him play all year. But yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if this means anything, but our beloved Twitter list maker, Big Game Boomer, actually put Arkansas in his top 25 worst Power Five teams. Do you agree with that?
honestly, the way our defenses look and the way we've lost the past few games, I couldn't put it past them. We haven't looked good, but it's halfway through the season, and I feel like this week we play an unranked BYU who did just lose this week, and I feel like if we can bounce back this game, we could potentially win out, depending on how our defense looked for the rest of the year and how the play calling change.
Yeah. Moving on to our other game from the SEC that was in the 11 o'clock slot. Tennessee traveling to Baton Rouge for the unusual 11 o'clock kickoff in Death Valley. And they came out just almost pretty much the same score, 40-13 in favor of the Volunteers. I can tell you this now before I go into the stats. This game was over at the opening kickoff. When
Yeah, it was.
LSU fumbled on the opening kickoff, Tennessee recovered at their own 20, and then within less than a minute, they already scored a touchdown.
Yeah, I did see that. And I was like, dang, what's going on in Death Valley?
But Hendon Hooker threw for 17 for 27, 237 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Excuse me. Jane Daniels, he did put up 300 yards.
Yeah.
He did throw a touchdown, but he did throw an interception. Hendon Hooker also had about 50 yards on the ground, but Tennessee is looking good, and they're starting to scare me for going into next week.
Yeah. Honestly, I still have a few days to look over this Tennessee Alabama game for when we do our pick'ems. But I wouldn't be surprised if I end up taking Tennessee to upset Alabama.
Yeah, and honestly, at this point, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
As of now, Alabama is an 8-point favorite. That's subject to change when we do our pick'em episode later this week.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like Tennessee may actually be good now, and obviously Tennessee fans are hyping this up, being like, "Oh, it's feeling like 1998 again, like when they won the national championship."
Yeah.
But all what matters is it comes down to what happens on Saturday in Knoxville. College game days come in. They'll probably hype with the fans and pick Tennessee to upset Alabama. But I'll just say this for a pick'em episode because that's gonna be a little bit more enticing. But as of now, I'm starting to think like Tennessee may possibly win the East. I think they have probably the best chance of beating Georgia in the regular season.
Just the thing about Georgia, Georgia always has a good defense, and they still do have a good defense. But I don't know. I would have to see more of Georgia for the rest of the year until that game comes to pick who wins that game. But I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee ends up winning and we get a rematch with Tennessee versus Alabama in the championship.
Yeah.
What Jabari Smalls for that game, he had 227 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns himself. And honestly, I feel bad for Jalen Daniels. He's a good quarterback. He just not on a good team. And I don't like their coach either. And I've said that many of times this year. I don't think Brian Kelly is a good coach. He was with a historic program who didn't really play that many good teams in their schedule when he was there, and it's really because of Notre Dame tradition and how they want to have their schedule with rivalry games or old time games. They've been living in the past for their entire existence, and I understand that they are a historic program, but it's time to beef up that schedule and show why Notre Dame is a good program. But they did beat BYU this week, so
Yeah.
yeah. So we can go to this next game. This what you TCU versus Kansas, which was a great game, unexpected college game day, with TCU winning 38-31. Max Duggan had a great game. He's really becoming that guy at TCU, and they have a big game coming up that we will talk about at when it comes to Thursday. Max Duggins was 23 for 33 with 308 yards and 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Jason Bean also had a good game with 16 for 24, 262 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. TCU is really looking like a good team. I did tell you when I seen them they looked like they had a pretty good defense, and it kind of shows, even though it was a combined of 69 points. Giggity. But there was 2 rushing touchdowns, one from Max Duggan and one from K Miller, who had 88 yards with a 17-yard rush as the longest. But yeah, it was a pretty good game. Too bad I didn't get to watch it because of the time slot. But yeah, TCU is really looking like they could win the Big 12. I actually think they probably will win the Big 12, depending on how this week goes. How do you feel about this, Will?
Yeah, I don't think you're too far off with that. I think TCU is definitely proven to be a good team. They're 5-0, one of only 2 undefeated teams left in their conference. The real test is coming up with Oklahoma State. But moving towards Kansas, like they should not be disappointed with this outcome. This is something they've been longing for years, and they finally look to be in the right direction. Yes, they did lose Jalen Daniels early on, and we had to see Jason Bean come in. But I mean, they still look good. Contrary to belief that the last time they started 5-0, they ended up losing all remaining 7 games and missed a bowl. I don't think that's going to happen this time around. I think Lance Leopold is going in that right direction with the program. I think they're going to regroup. They do have an Oklahoma team who is on a downfall. That's going to be a good game. But, Max Duggan, I think, is going to be like one of those. I'm not saying he's a dark horse yet for the Heisman. I think if he does well in this game, we can start having him that conversation. But he also did put up 55 yards on the ground with a touchdown, so we can't look past that. But yeah, I think TCU realistically. Who's the home game in this? TCU or Oklahoma State?
I'm not 100% sure. I want to say it's TCU, but I can check right quick.
Yeah. If it is in Fort Worth, I think that stadium is going to be loud and it's going to be.
Yeah, I might have to go up to that game, honestly, if it is in Fort Worth.
I think TCU with this win could go back to where they were about 10 or so years ago with Andy Dalton when they won the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, it is in Fort Worth.
Yeah, I think TCU is going to be kind of like where they were before they joined the Big 12, and good for them.
Yeah,
like the program has kind of like suffered in the last few years on the Gary Patterson, like JP loves that era. I know.
Yeah, Sonny Dykes looks like he is a big five, a big dang, what's it called? My bad, Power 5 coach who can actually bring TCU back to the glory days. To when Gary Patterson was at his prime, and it looks like he could be the answer for TCU for the long run.
Yeah, and this was a good hire for him. He did wonders at SMU. He doesn't have to go far for this TCU job, and I think it's going to benefit him. Like, do I think TCU is going to be good now, I think possibly, and I think if they keep this momentum up, they could be, the next, especially with these other teams coming in, BYU, Houston, Cincinnati, UCF coming in next year. It's going to be a lot of competition, but I think TCU is going to be in the better half of it.
Yeah. Let's go to this next game with number 11 Utah and number 18 UCLA. What? I didn't really watch this game, but I did watch the highlights, and Chip Kelly looks like he's back.
Yeah.
Yeah. UCLA won 42-32. DTR Dorian Thompson Robinson. He was 18 for 23 with nearly 300 yards passing. He did have 299 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, and an interception. He looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This isn't going out with saying Cam Rising, who, I've been praising about all year. He did put up a good game. He had 2 rushing touchdowns with 239 yards in the air. Did have an interception, which kind of, defeats it. For the most part, UCLA did control most of the game, and Utah looked like they were coming back, but in the end, UCLA won. Rose Bowl, it's still not, packed, but it's a 90,000 seat stadium in the middle of LA. You're not expected to pack it out on Saturday afternoon. Let's be realistic.
yeah. Let's give our props to Tavon Thompson, who had 91 yards and a touchdown for Utah. But I don't know how to say UCLA's running back's last name, Zach Charbonnet. I'm pretty sure.
Charbonnet, yeah, he had 200 yards.
Yeah, which is amazing for any level of football. And he had a touchdown, a 49-yard rush too. So Chip Kelly is looking good. Utah, this is their second loss. Don't we what we don't think they're gonna make the Pac-12 championship just because the 2 teams in UCLA and USC in their division. Will we find out if LA is red or blue?
We're gonna have to wait till the end of the season, I think. I think one of these teams is gonna have a loss going in, and it's most likely gonna be UCLA. They do have Oregon coming up this week, which is gonna be a good game.
Yeah.
But I think realistically, it's gonna come down to this last week game between USC, UCLA, and whoever wins is probably gonna end up representing the Pac-12 South in the championship when they play Oregon.
Yeah.
It's most likely going to be Oregon at this point.
Yeah, this game coming up with UCLA and Oregon could decide who's well, could see who the Pac-12 championship is by the looks of Oregon is most likely one in the North, and between UCLA and USC in the South, this could be the Pac-12 championship game before it actually happens.
Yeah, and this was something we didn't even think about, like going into the season. We expected it was going to come down between Utah and USC for this 2-way race, and here comes UCLA being that 3rd team and possibly running that up. But USC is going to be USC.
Yeah, isn't it crazy? One of the best teams in the conference can't even fill their stadium with fans. Not even like fill it up, but just like show an effort to fill it up. You know what I'm saying? Because this team is looking good. They've played some great games and played some great teams, and they just not filling it up at all. Like it's been pretty bad.
Yeah, I think this is the point where now UCLA is number 11. I think now this is the point where it's going to start getting more and more full, especially if they have more night games. I think that's the difference maker because you're still in Southern California in 80-degree weather, and there's better things to do in Los Angeles than sit out for 3.5 hours at a football game.
Yeah,
That's just my like feel of it for Los Angeles people.
yeah. You want to take the next one?
Yeah, so this was a really close game. Came down to basically the last play of the game. NC State barely outlasting Florida State 19-17. Devin Leary only had about 100 yards with a touchdown and interception, but still enough for NC State to come out on top. Jordan Travis put up 181 yards. 181 yards with touchdown, 108 yards on the ground, but two interceptions cost them, and one of them being within the last 10 seconds of the game where they threw an interception in NC State's red zone to, essentially lose the game. So I think NC State is now on that bounce back from losing to Clemson. Probably a better thing for them. I think they're going to finish out the year strong. I don't know really how the ACC standing wise, what it's looking like, but I think NC State basically went through their two hardest games of the year with Clemson and Florida State. I think they still have Wake left, but regardless, I think NC State could probably make a good name for themselves. At least being in a big game, a big bowl game.
Yeah. Looking at the scoreboard for this game, Florida State scored all their points in the second quarter, which is very surprising. But it was a pretty defensive game. NC State did come back to second half and just took the lead, went into the last second. I watched the highlights for this, and when I was watching the highlights, knowing the score and who won, I'm just like, how did Florida State lose this game? Because all the highlights were Florida State until like towards the end of the video, and all you see is NC State just coming back and winning this game. NC State, they only have one loss. They have I don't think they have a chance of making the playoffs at all. Just the way they're winning, and I don't really think they're that good of a team that everyone thought they would be at the beginning of the year. Everyone actually thought they would be in the playoffs coming up this year.
Just big game boomer.
Yeah, a lot of other people did think that too. But Florida State, they looking like they're not a team to play with. They looking like a pretty solid team, a very scary team to play. But they do play Clemson coming up this week. We might talk about the game. I don't know yet, depending on how many games we have. But yeah, Florida State is looking like they're back to where they were at least before the Mike Norvell era. Well,
yeah,
a little bit before that, before the Willie Taggart era. Let's say that.
Yeah, when they were still in the Jimbo era.
Yeah, but not that high up though.
Yeah. But, at least with them, like they're back on the right track. This was Norvell's make or break year. Like if he underperformed again, he was going to be gone.
Yeah.
And I think
he did sign an extension. They did sign him to an extension.
Yeah, but I think they would have still like pulled the trigger.
I don't know. That's a pretty big trigger to be pulling. But let's go to this game that no one cares about because both of these teams are pretty mediocre at some point. Let's go talk to Texas and Oklahoma. Texas destroyed Oklahoma 49-0. Quinn Ewers' first game back from his injury against Alabama. He went 21 for 31, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns and an interception. Who was Oklahoma's quarterback? No one cares. Because they had like 5 people throw a pass, and neither one of them was General Booty. We need the Booty man. Like, where is he? Like, hopefully he starts next game though. But Davis, don't know how to say his last name, but his name is Davis, and
Davis Bevel.
Yeah, Bevel. There you go. No one really cares though. He went 6 for 12 with 38 yards and an interception. Texas had more points than Oklahoma had passing yards. Isn't that crazy? Like, that's unheard of.
That's how bad they are. And before I get into my wonderful discussion, you know what we're on this week?
Big Game Mover back. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought 3 weeks in a row. We are on that pack.
Even though this is probably the last game we talk about Oklahoma for the rest of the year.
Yeah, because they went from being a playoff contender to being irrelevant. And I'm loving every second of it because let's get one thing straight. Like, yes, Dylan Gabriel was out again, but that doesn't give you an excuse to go out and have the biggest shutout in your program's history. This is a school that's been playing over 100 years, and they've never lost this big of a game to Texas, let alone any other team in their history.
This is literally their biggest rivalry game.
Yeah. Like, they consider Texas more of a rival than Oklahoma State, and they're leaving Oklahoma State behind when they go to the SEC. They're not renewing that rivalry.
Yeah.
if this is what we're going to be seeing going forward in the SEC, it's going to be like Tennessee and Vanderbilt, and the orange team comes out on top every time.
You put Tennessee and Vanderbilt in the same sentence as being bad? That's crazy, Will. That's some elite hating right there.
I mean, look at this. Like, and I'm even going to bring up Eric Gray, who's a Memphis native, went to Lausanne. He threw an interception.
Yeah,
They put up on the Wildcat. He threw like did a jump pass and it was intercepted in their red zone.
yeah.
Like,
The running back play was pretty bad too. All their yards is a little bit more than Bijan Robinson, who had 130 yards with 2 touchdowns. And Oklahoma rushing attack was 156 yards, which is crazy. What they didn't even have 200 total yards of offense, which is really bad.
yeah,
Oklahoma and Texas, it's going to be a doozy when they get into the SEC because they don't look like they're good at all. Let's go to this next game, a game I know you want to talk about. Bad.
yeah. I'll take it from here. The game that gave me a heart attack in the figurative sense, not literally. I'm fine. Um, this was the game 7 o'clock in Bryant Denny Stadium, Alabama, Texas A&M. The game that everyone's been hyping up about all offseason because of what went down between Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher with the whole buying players and Jimbo being like complaining and whatever. Um, and this was kind of a disappointing of a game in terms of action, at least, because both these teams are without their starting quarterbacks. Max Johnson broke his thumb. He's out for a while. We had the shoulder injury with Bryce Young last week, and we're probably going to hopefully we see him again next week against
Yeah,
Tennessee.
y'all gonna need them this upcoming week. If y'all don't have them, I'm definitely not picking Alabama.
Yeah. So we had Jalen Milroe coming from Bama. He went 12 for 19 with 111 passing yards, 3 touchdowns and an interception, plus 80 yards on the ground. But that does not deny the fact that he also he had 2 fumbles. When he was escaping the pocket, trying to rush it, didn't have ball security, and A&M lineman just came back, popped it out, we lost it. Not to mention we had another lost fumble with Jason McClellan for running back, but Haynes King wasn't that much better. 25 for 46, 253 yards passing with 2 touchdowns and interception. Yes, they had more passing yards, but I don't even know where I'm going with this. But this game is just like a headache to watch. With
Yeah, the second half looked like it was pretty bad football scoring wise.
Yeah, not to mention our once in a lifetime good kicker Will Riker missed 2 easy field goals, which could have put
Alabama, y'all have a curse on kickers. Y'all special teams has a curse when it comes to kicking.
Yeah, but I think in this term, Milroe is not a passer. I think he should, he needs to work on that a lot, especially with, Tennessee being a really high-powered defense.
Do we see a Ty Simpson come in if Milroe is not playing good?
I wouldn't have been surprised if we saw him come in. And secondly, our secondary was such a liability in that game. It wasn't even funny.
Yeah.
Specifically, Terrion Arnold. He did have the 1 interception from Haynes King, but he was getting burnt left and right. He gave up huge penalties when it mattered the most, and like our secondary, as well. Brian Branch, Malachi Moore. We haven't even seen Eli Ricks yet, and he's supposed to be this really good transfer coming in from LSU. But I think we have a lot of improvement we need to look forward to going into Tennessee. I know we said the same thing when we lost to Texas earlier in the season. I think now going forward, we need to really bunker down, figure out, and get Bill O'Brien as far away from the play calling as possible because Jesus Christ, this man does not know how to pass from outside the pocket.
Well, he's probably calling better plays than Kendall Browse right now. I can tell you
that's just
Will. You watched the Arkansas Alabama game. That was a pretty bad play calling game.
Yeah, from both offensive coordinators.
Yeah, but Gibbs is looking like he might be the best running back in the nation this year.
He's up there, definitely. Obviously the biasy and him coming in as a transfer from Georgia Tech, I think kind of filled in that gap left by Brian Robinson, who, actually came back this week.
Many men.
Yeah, exactly. I would play that song all day. Like,
Yeah.
it was awesome seeing him come back, especially from that injury. But, I think this was the scare that finally put the fear into some of the players for Alabama. And I think they want to keep this notion of Alabama has never lost to Tennessee under Nick
Yeah.
Saban. I think they want to keep that alive and well. And so I think that was their wake up call of sloppy deep, like sloppy secondary, sloppy
So
offensive play calling from the butt chin. And I'm a little nervous. Like, first time I've said that in a long
Bro,
time.
I can see the fear in your face right now. Will.
All I'm gonna say is we'll talk about this on Thursday when we get Josh on the call if he's on. And in summary, as much as like I want to put this game behind me, a win is a win. We move on to the next one.
Yeah, it was more of a Texas A&M giving y'all the game than y'all winning it because I don't know what Jimbo Fisher were doing that last play of the game. Honestly, I would have just ran it, gave it to HN, or at least pass it further into the end zone.
Yeah.
Your boy Johnny Manziel, he did tweet out saying that was the worst play call he's ever seen in his life. So
That was especially you're on the 2 yard line. You just had this defensive holding call get called on you with 2 seconds left. You're kind of thinking maybe they should run the ball, give it to A Chain, like you were saying. But they basically watched what Denver did on Thursday night and tried passing it and it failed.
yeah, and it wasn't even in the end zone. It was like right at the goal line. Like it was terrible pass.
Yeah, no, it was like right at the one and it was overthrown.
Yeah. So
All right, before we close this episode, we're done talking about this game because I'm gonna have an aneurysm. We don't do like helmet stickers or anything, like, but I do want to give a big shout out to Pittsburgh running back Israel Ada Banikando. I butchered that name 100%.
yeah, I don't blame you.
He's as a running back, he scored 6 touchdowns on Saturday, and
What? I did. Why did I miss that?
in Pitt's win over Virginia Tech. Yeah, he had on 36 carries, 320 yards on the ground with 6 touchdowns.
That's crazy. Yeah, look, give it up for that guy. Yeah, because that has to be some type of NCAA record.
Well, the rushing record's like
No, not the rushing record. I'm just talking about touchdown record for
I
one
think
player.
I think it's like 7 or 8. I could be
That's
wrong.
crazy. But yeah, give it up for him. This is the end of the episode. Thank you, Will, for another great podcast. Make sure y'all like, comment down below, like and share. Subscribe and see y'all Thursday or Friday for y'all. See ya.
Peace.
Peace.